ended up hearing about this asshole named Matt Walsh, and he tries to sound intellectual with what he's saying, and it's not, because he is throwing out there and something that I've heard before. Right now, even though we went through the antebellum chattel slavery, that we are better off right now today than we would have been had we not been enslaved. I know it's sick. I mean, I'm not shocked by it. When you are American and you think about the hundreds of years of atrocities against Black people and the fact that you wiped out so many tribes, and I do understand there were Native Americans who participated in the slave trade. If you see the African tribes that participated and the Native Americans that participated, you see what that got them. That got them colonized, and it got them also ending up in a situation where everything was taken from them. So you can see the adverse effect of that, of participating with barbarians, and dare I call brute beast. Yeah, I can't see you being human and doing all of this. And then on top of that, celebrating your ancestors doing all of this. They are trying to say that them getting people and bringing them into the slave trade in some way made us better than we would have been. And they're trying to say that there's no way to know if that's true. He also had to admit that the world, not just America, but the world and any of its advancements and wealth is better off because slavery happened. And the manipulative thing that they try and do is they try and conflate slavery with antebellum chattel slavery, and there is no similarities. They try and say everyone practiced slavery. Everyone did not practice antebellum chattel slavery, and I do not believe that everyone practiced slavery. They practiced something that is called bondsmen and bondswomen, and that is actually in the biblical text as well, because the Bible was referenced in the TikTok video. But it wasn't like I slave you for the rest of your life and I have you. No. Being a bondsman or bondswoman means you owed a debt. So if that's the definition, hell, today you can be a slave because you have to pay off that mortgage, you have to pay off that car loan. It's literally saying that you have taken something or been given something, and now you have to work for so many years to go ahead and pay that off. Most of the time it was 7 years, and then you would get it's the same thing that happened with the Irish when they say they were enslaved. They weren't. They were indentured servants, and indentured servitude is the same as being a bondswoman or man, where you owe a debt, but you are going to get something in return, like some land, funds, whatever it was. You got something in return for that work. And also it was supposed to be the basis for sharecropping, where you'd be given certain tools and land and stuff to sharecrop, but you see what happened there. It's always something manipulative to scam a person. But like I said, it came out of his own mouth. The world and 100% America would not be what it is if it was not for antebellum chattel slavery. So to pretend like this nation does not owe a debt, hell, the world owes a debt 100%, because they are still taking resources out of colonized countries to this day. They are doing the same thing, just It's under a different and modernized way and name. But then he has the nerve to sit up there and say that black people are so removed from antebellum chattel slavery, and we don't talk about Jim Crow, we don't talk about Reconstruction, we don't talk about the literal theft of Black Wall Street and so many other black towns. We're not even taking that into consideration. We're not even going to talk about what happened with sharecropping. And I'm a millennial, and my mother and her siblings and my grandmother were sharecropping. And to sit up there and pretend like this is so long ago. And I'm sitting up here saying my mother, not my grandmother, not my great grandmother, my effing mother. But there's no impact. The impact is seen. It's poverty. It's the fact that when you look, I mean, what do they say? The black dollar passes through the community one time before it leaves. We don't have savings. Economically, we're not well. And then what they'll do, they'll prop somebody up like Beyonce and Jay-Z as if a fucking entertainer has anything to do with the overwhelming majority of the community. And they know this. They're not arguing with black people about this. This has nothing to do with us. We don't even have to engage if we don't want to. They know that it's coming. It's going to happen. I don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. No one has to worry about it. It's going to happen, period. And like I always say, it'll be the easy way or the hard way. It's going to happen. Matt Walsh does not have any control over whether this happens or not. And it's not going to be them trying to pull a fast one. Nobody is accepting that. Nobody is accepting less than what is owed and the compound interest on what's owed. And they can be mad and they can say you're not. Most of the people who are talking ish have absolutely no power and no control, and they cannot stop it. So their word vomit means nothing. But the one thing that I think I was surprised is the fact that he admitted that the world benefited from black suffering, the grape, the beating, the working until the muscle detached from the bone, the gator bait, anything that you could imagine is 10 times worse. And it's still going on today, just under a different name. And yes, trafficking is horrible and it's at an all-time high, but it has always been slavery because people, the highest number for exploitation is exploiting people for work, taking away people's passport, having them work and not paying them. That's above ex-human trafficking.
First introduced in 1989 that would study the issue of awarding reparations to the descendants of American slaves. The House Judiciary Committee voted along party lines to send a bill to the House floor for the first time to create a commission to study the legacy of American slavery, of racist laws, and how they affected formerly enslaved people and their descendants. The bill instructs the 13-person committee to consider a national apology and to recommend any appropriate remedies to Congress for slavery. So this is a bill. This is a committee talking about a bill to study. There are a lot of steps still to go through, and this goes back to 1989. So this idea has been out there for a long time. Up until a couple of years ago, I would have said this is political posturing. It's not really going to happen. But I think we're at a point now where this will happen. I'll make that prediction right now. I think some kind of reparation policy will be passed.
Exactly. I'm glad he's come to that realization, but he said some kind of. So he's holding out hope that it's not exactly what we would want. I'm so glad that they're coming to the realization that it's going to happen. And it's not going to be what they did to the natives. It's not going to be what they did to everyone else. It's going to be real reparations that will repair the damage that was done, regardless of how many generations it will take to get close to repayment. If they have to pay forever, it will get paid.
It is with the Democrats having total control of the government right now and white guilt being at its absolute peak. Yeah, I think it will happen.
And I'm so glad that there's guilt for a horrific situation. See, there are some people who can understand. When you look at what happened, it disgusts you. And they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to celebrate it anymore. And they don't want their names down as somebody who upheld this horrific system.
It's not going to be to the full extent that left-wing activists hope for, but it'll be something. Let's look at a few clips here of it's not going to be to the full extent that left-wing activists hope for, but it'll be something.
Who is he to say it's not going to be the full extent to what black people want, but it'll be something? Because that's what he really said. They use these dog whistles, the politics, and now the word woke and all that BS. That's the new word for black, okay? It will be more, actually, than we imagine. He act like he has some type of control over the purse and over the policy and what's going to get done.
Let's look at a few clips here of lawmakers debating this. First, here is Democrat Hakeem Jeffries arguing for reparations. Let's hear what his case is.
We're not going to move on because after slavery, Jim Crow and the rise of the KKK and the lynching epidemic and Plessy versus Ferguson and Black Wall Street in 1921 destroyed. Why? Because black prosperity was viewed as a threat to white supremacy. So no, we're not simply going to move on. And when the Great Depression struck, African Americans were hit the hardest and we received the least amount of support. Why? Because yes, Southern Dixiecrats insisted that in the New Deal, African Americans would be excluded, while other Americans were helped. Excluded from Social Security, because most of us were domestic workers, or many of us, and agricultural workers, excluded from Social Security, excluded from unemployment insurance, and excluded from the federally subsidized loans and insured loans that were issued. So between 1934 and 1962, 98% of the federally insured loans that were issued by the federal government were issued to white Americans.
Okay. Rather than me responding to that, I'd rather hear from Representative Burgess Owens, who you could find.
Okay, the reason why he does not want to address it is because he does not have a rebuttal for what was said. If something wasn't true, he definitely would have said something or found something to say, or whoever works for him would have found something to say. But he has no rebuttal for it. It's all true. But he's going to let this Rocket Raccoon speak.
I'm looking forward to, by the way, reparation. When you take people's money that they've earned, it's punishment. It's theft. It's judgment. It's saying that because of your skin color, you owe me. That is not the American way. We're not racist people. This American country is based on meritocracy. And I tell you, anybody who's been in sports or military, you guys get it. At the end of the day, it's the character, it's resolve, it's the loyalty that makes the difference. The color of skin has nothing to do with how we choose those people that we want to trust and move forward with.
Now, did you hear the dumb shit that he said? America is not racist, but it engaged in antebellum chattel slavery and slaughtered the Native Americans to damn near almost non-existent. There are plenty of founding fathers who basically said that this world, they saw the hypocrisy in their words because this nation was built for colorless people and the advancement of colorless people. The system is working how it was envisioned by their forefathers. And for him to sit up here and say this is not a racist nation, he's a liar. He's a well-paid liar. Black people, it's just in your imagination. They think this old rhetoric and this old BS that they have used is going to work in 2023. It's not. And it's insulting for them to keep doing this. They're taking talking points from, I don't know, 1950s or 1960s conversations and thinking this is going to work in 2023. And that's insulting and racist in itself, because they think we're so uneducated and we can't use our critical thinking skills and intelligence to know when you're playing in our face and when you're being disrespectful. And just because you buy a pair of black lips to say something for you doesn't mean that's going to help in this situation.
This American country is based on meritocracy. And I tell you, anybody who's been in sports or military, you guys get it. At the end of the day, it's the character. Reparation, when you take people's money that they've earned, is punishment. It's theft. It's judgment.
And I wanted to go back to that because that's right. Taking people's money, hashtag Black Wall Street, is theft. Bombing people is murder. Enslaving people and taking their hard work, energy, time, their life, and the life of their yet unborn children that they were produced, and putting them in the same situation generation after generation after generation, is theft. Because of the color of their skin, they were 3/5 of a human. And I know that people say that's about voting rights, but no matter how you slice that pie, if you had 5 people, they'd only count as 3 if you were black. Using the melanin in the skin to condemn a person into slavery for the rest of their lives, which extended to their children because they would come out with the same color skin, taking their life. Not only was the wealth they generated taken, but their life was taken. And this woman who was pregnant and she is holding her belly, her child's life would be taken, and she had to think about that and live with that. And not only that, they take the child and sell it. In case they didn't have enough for a bale of hay, go ahead and take this kid. When they talk about it so logically and calm and cool and collected, they still see us as non-human. And I don't give a fuck at this point. I really don't. What else is to be expected from somebody like this? There's always a ninja in a corner somewhere who you throw him a few crumbs, that fall off the table, a few crumbs, he'll do just about anything. They've always been around. Judas has always been around. But the one thing that he said that he didn't mean to say, that it's a judgment upon the people. This is going to be a judgment on what this nation participated in. This nation has had obscene amounts of wealth because of antebellum chattel slavery. And if they didn't know, the first sign of them having to pay these reparations in full plus interest was when them Twin Towers got knocked down. And I know people are going to say there were all types of people in there. Yes, but those two were the symbol of the nation's wealth. Regardless of how you think they got knocked down, don't care. Though that was the symbol of this nation's wealth and power. And when those towers came down, what was underneath? A slave grave. But that was just to put them on notice. Yeah, you're going to pay for this.
Is saying that because of your skin color, you owe me. That is not the American way. We're not racist people. This American country is based on meritocracy. And I tell you, anybody who's been in sports or military, you guys get it. At the end of the day, it's the character, it's resolve, it's the loyalty that makes the difference. The color of skin has nothing to do with how we choose those people that we want to trust and move forward with.
Yeah, that kind of sums it up. That's what it is. It is punishment, vengeance. What is greasing the wheels here
And you're exactly right. It's punishment. There's consequences to everything you do. And this is what they try and say they teach their children. There is consequences to everything that you do. And people will say, well, I wasn't around. It doesn't matter. You benefit off of what your ancestors have done. Not only do you benefit off of it, you still celebrate it to this day. Because it's April, in less than 3 months, they are going to celebrate what their ancestors achieved. On this July 4th, 2023, they're going to be letting off fireworks and having sparklers and having family. And it's not like what Black people do. We enjoy the day off, but I don't celebrate it, but we enjoy the day off. But they are going to reminisce about 1776. So if you reminisce and celebrate Christopher Columbus, the pedophile, if you celebrate Thanksgiving, that means you are in agreement with your ancestors and everything that they did. So that's how that judgment falls upon your head. Sorry, not sorry. And since this is a Christian nation, you can ask your pastor this. I don't know if he's going to tell you the truth or not. I mean, you don't have to ask him. You can look yourself. It does say the sin of the father shall be visited upon the sons. So yes, the sins of your forefathers are going to be visited upon the descendants. I don't know why, since this is such a Christian nation, they don't understand this. It baffles me. And then he tried to say, oh, it's about the content of your character, the whole MLK bullshit that they try and push out there. And you see how the rhetoric is different, because there are some people who have actually said, to the victor goes the spoils. If this happens, then, oh, well, that's a victory. But when it's them in the hot seat, and they're going to lose some privilege, some wealth, some money, anything that they see as taking away from them, then they want all this grace, forgiveness, and humanity and coming together. And it's like an abuser. They want to have a come to Jesus moment when you've sent their abusive ass to jail. And they want you to recant your story or forgive them.
For this to actually happen is white guilt. White guilt at an all-time high in this country, especially on the left, but not just on the left. This is something that is being drilled into kids' heads from a very young age.
No, it's not. They're just having this awakening, I'll call it. Awakening of all of the things that their ancestors did to benefit them, and how their benefit is reliant on the oppression of other people. And if you even understand that on a basic level, then you do understand that you reap what you sow. There is karma, and there is a equal or greater reaction to every action. People like him don't understand that, because in their minds, they've gotten away with this for so long that they feel like they're untouchable. But there's people who are getting this energy up their spine, like, we're not untouchable, and we're going to get the business if we don't even at least try to set things right. If you want to choose the easy way or the hard way, it's your choice.
And it gets more and more intense as they get older. You get into college, and it is full-on cult-like brainwashing. But the idea is, if you're white, you're guilty of these sins from the past. You have unique ancestral guilt. As I always say, it's a very religious kind of idea. This is their religion. The idea of inherited guilt. Only in this case, it is racially inherited guilt. Like, there's guilt that flows in the bloodline for white people. And this is an idea that many people find very convincing and compelling because it's been beaten to their heads.
There was a lady on TikTok who said that she went to a Christian school, and she said that, they taught them that slavery, antebellum chattel slavery, was good because they know Jesus now, that it wasn't as bad as people try and make it out to be, and it's biblical. There is no antebellum chattel slavery in the Bible. Of course, we know about Rachel and Leah, but he did have to work 14 years for them. He was working 7 just for her. And that's like a dowry that he worked for her. But that's just an example to show you that, you're either working to get something or you owe something. But to literally lay your hands on someone and kidnap someone and take someone, that's punishable by death in the biblical text. And this is what they did. And you see the African nations, they ended up colonized, and their resources are being taken to this day for what they did. Not everybody in Africa agreed with this. Not everybody participated in this. And even the type of slavery that was going on was not as horrific. You could say the Arab slave trade was another nasty one, but typically slavery was not a lifelong sentence, and it wasn't passed down to your children. And also there were things set in place that you could and could not do. The transatlantic slave trade was something totally different. And I'm not going to allow these people to sit up here and pretend like everything was the same.
And that's why a lot of white people in this country now would submit to this. Having money taken out of their wallets, food taken out of their children's mouths to pay for a sin they didn't commit, they had nothing to do with at all.
Their very lives that they have today, their very existence, the fact that they breathe, some of them breathe because their great grandmother or grandfather was fed from the breast of a black woman. So let's also insert that they owe their lives to the enslaved. And also goes both ways. You're going to have to give an account for what you did. When you take the wealth, the livelihood, and the lives of people, so your descendants can enjoy a certain type of lifestyle, you're going to have to pay for that. The whole point of killing the Native Americans and taking the land and setting things up the way they did was for not only for them to have some type of prosperity, but for it to go on for the generations. And that's what it did. And that is what these people are living in. If you are a colorless person in poverty, I don't know what to tell you. You're lazy because you have the skin tone to progress further. I don't know what to tell you. And it's on you because you hold up this system, and this system says, it only needs a few people. That's between you and your people, has nothing to do with us. They're the ones who set up this system. And if you're getting eaten up by it and you have colorless skin, hey, you're going to have to go to your brethren and figure that out. Yeah, he is so sad that there are colorless people who are telling this nation to pay for the sins that were committed. And what really bothers me about this is they are okay with taxpayer money going for wars. They are okay with taxpayer money going toward corporations who are owned by people who look like them. They are okay with the waste and the money and the theft that is going on right now using taxpayer dollars. The Mississippi governor using the money to take his friends on lavish vacations where they can eat steak and shrimp, which is what they say poor people on SNAP benefits they do. But the governor actually did that. and the people who needed it the most didn't get it. They're okay with taxpayer money going toward that, but they will be damned if your black ass gets any of that taxpayer money because of what this nation has done and the position it has put you in. And the fact that we are a permanent fucking underclass because we are within a nation that hates our black ass.
Now, one thing that is rarely clarified when we hear this idea of reparations, you heard it when I was reading from the LA Times article. They talk about reparation for the descendants of African slaves. Well, even that is a horrible idea, but is that really all you're talking about? So we're going to, before we pay reparations to a black American, first we're going to make sure they actually are a descendant of an African slave? Is that what we're talking about? Because that's going to exclude many millions of black Americans who live here now and are not descendants of African slaves because their family came here more recently than that. But if we're doing that, okay, so if we're going to single out the descendants of African slaves, then are we also going to single out the descendants of slave owners? What about the people who white people whose families came here well after slavery had already been abolished? Like me, for example, my family. My family wasn't here when that was happening. My family's largely Irish, which means not only did they not own slaves, but when they came here, they faced quite a lot of discrimination, systemic discrimination as well.
I don't want to hear this Irish bullshit. I'm not going to get into that, but yes, the African people who have immigrated here, who are not descendants of American chattel slavery, would be excluded. And there needs to be a cutoff point if you are of mixed race origin. And all of the white people who came over here, they came over here to enjoy whiteness. They came over here to enjoy what the possibilities were for them. They didn't have to compete in a country of their own. They could come over here and be seen something other than black. So yes, they benefited from the framework. So yes, they will be included in that. Glad I could answer that for you.
Do I get some kind of reparation for that? I mean, you could easily make the case that when my Irish ancestors came here, they faced discrimination, systemic discrimination against Irish people, which was very common back then. And that set them on a certain path. And if it weren't for that, I could be in a totally different spot right now. I could be much richer, much more well off, butterfly effect and all that. You could make that case.
He is grasping for so many fucking straws, he's stuttering. Now, no, the Irish that came over were not slaves. They were indentured servants. And I've already talked about what indentured servitude is. If they want to have that conversation with their people, that's on them. This has nothing to do with antebellum chattel slavery that affected black people. Everybody always trying to attach on to black issues so they can get something, and we never benefit. It's so many people who like to attach themselves to black issues so they can step up on your neck to get what they want, and they will not be around to make sure you get what you need. The Irish was not enslaved. They were not worked and the money was taken from them. They were given something for their indentured servitude. They may have been looked down upon. It may not have felt nice to them. There may have been some exploitation going on, but that doesn't compare to antebellum chattel slavery, and I need him to stop.
But then if you're going to do that, then you could really take anyone and you could trace it back, and you could find the misfortune suffered by their ancestors, tragedies that befell them, oppression they suffered. It would be very hard to find probably anyone on earth outside of, like, I don't know, the royal family. There are not very many people on earth who do not have very real oppression in their bloodline going back to their ancestors. Oppression, persecution, tragedy, suffering, you know.
Okay, so his last plea is everyone has experienced something. You Negroes are no different. And like I said, I've heard this so many times over the years before. It's like, whatever. Nobody cares about what Matt Walsh is talking about. Nobody cares except people. Your typical racist, colorless person who thinks they have a say in what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. This perpetual hate for Black people will continue to burn in them for the rest of their lives through the generations. It hasn't stopped even in 2023. And I've accepted that. It's whatever. But it's funny that he thinks he has a say, and his audience also thinks they have a say in what's going to happen, and it's going to happen, and they can be mad. I'll enjoy their passivity with popcorn and my tea, but I'll go ahead and leave it right here. Let me know what you think about what you heard. I'll leave a link if you want to watch it through. All the way through. Leave that link in the description box, and I will see you in the next one.